All right, welcome back to SportsLine. In just a minute, we're going to talk with our buddy John Glennon, get his thoughts on the Titans and the Predators. But real quick, I want to go back to the phones and check in with Cody on line 2. What's up, Cody?
Hello?
Hey, yeah, it's John. You're on the air.
Buddy, I got through.
What's up?
Yeah, can I ask a question about the volunteers there?
Sure, real quick. What do you got?
Well, I got a son, and I got the VHS tapes and everything I need to get him on somewhere. I was wondering if he can walk on up there on the hill with the program that Bush James is running now.
How old, you want him to walk on to the football program there?
Yeah, you wouldn't be laughing. You wouldn't be laughing if you saw him, man. He's about 280, 6'7".
Well, I'll tell you what you do, man, and thanks for the call. Have them put some stuff on YouTube and get a hold of the recruiting coordinators up there at UT. They'll take a look at it. If he can play, they'll give him a look. Promise you that. I promise you that. And as promised, here's our buddy John Glennon, who covers the Titans and Predators. Also provides some digital content for us at newschannel5.com, formerly of the Tennessean. Johnny, how are you tonight? Thanks for jumping on, man.
I'm doing well, sir. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, I want to start with the Predators. They hit the halfway mark of their schedule last night. 2-1 overtime win over Vancouver. Kind of an odd game. They were winning and they gave up a late goal, but they were able to get the game winner in overtime. Obviously, a couple of key players have been out. PK Subban's been out. James Neal's been out. This was a team, though, that was a popular pick in the Western Conference. And right now, as we sit, they're on the outside looking in at a playoff spot. Obviously, still plenty of hockey left to play. Any reason for Preds fans right now to be concerned about this team as it pertains to them making the playoffs?
Well, I think they're still obviously very much in the playoff push, in the playoff race. They're only a couple points off the pace right now. And, as we've seen in the past, I think especially in the NHL, if you can just make it into the playoffs, anything can happen. It's a league where the top seeds don't necessarily win the Stanley Cup on a regular basis, that's for sure. So would you like to see the Predators in better position? And is it expected maybe that they might have been in better position? Yes, but I think there are some contributing factors. As you mentioned, injuries. Subban has been out for a while. James Neal, Colin Wilson, and then we've seen Ryan Ellis out a good bit also. And I still think also that there's some adjustment going on from last year. Some of the names that left, obviously Shea Weber and some of the other guys at Gostad, at Jackman and Nystrom, even though some of those other guys didn't necessarily play a ton, they were, I think important in the leadership department, and I think some of the new Predators are kind of growing into those roles now. I think they're certainly capable, and it's going to happen, but I think there's still chemistry forming on this Predators team. So, I certainly think they'll make a playoff push here in the coming months.
John, do you think maybe we all underestimated the adjustment period that you speak of when you lose a guy like Shea Weber and some of the other guys you mentioned? I mean, this is a different looking dressing room than it was last year, as you mentioned.
It is, everybody knew that Shea Weber, leaving would be a big deal. Of course, offset by the acquisition of the very talented PK Subban. But as I say, some of the other guys necessarily weren't big scorers, but I think they did play an important role. Veteran guys with a lot of experience. So when you looked at this team on paper right away, say, hey, there's a ton of talent. That team is going to get out of the gates quickly, and they're going to go a long way. And I do still think there's certainly that potential for the Preds to make a run and for things to come together. But I think it just shows you that you can't necessarily look at paper and say things are going to gel right away. Mm-hmm. This group is taking a little bit of time to adjust, but I think certainly the talent level is there. It's just a matter of kind of hoping everybody gets healthy and developing a little continuity. Probably both on and off the ice.
John Glennon is our guest. He's our Titans and Predators insider, formerly of the Tennessean. John, one of the guys that has stepped up his game of late is Austin Watson. Had a goal last night. I know you spent a lot of time with him today after practice in the Predators dressing room. What do you think has been some of the keys to his improved play the last few games?
He's worked, I think, very hard to develop the trust of the coaches, and he has moved up. He's getting about 3 or 4 minutes more ice time per game than he had been, say, even a couple of weeks ago. He's playing with more talent around him. Mike Fisher has been a center for the last 3 or 4 games. That's going to help you, and then Colton Sissons on the other side. But, I think just in general, he has progressed so much since earlier in the year. This is a guy who, was sent down, didn't make the team out of training camp, and was actually had to be waived because of his experience in the league. But, I think since then, he's really kind of transformed himself a little bit. You look at a guy who's become a much more physical player. He's been willing to drop the gloves this year a number of times. I think he's just accepted his role very well. He's a good grinding forward, and now he's starting to chip in points. I think you're getting an awful lot out of Austin Watson right now.
No question about it, John. What about Pekka Rinne, a guy that's in his mid-30s now? There's a little bit of rumblings this past summer that, maybe his best days are behind him, or he only has a couple of quality years left. What do you see from number 35 between the pipes so far this season?
I tell you, if you watched the game last night, saw another vintage Pekka Rinne performance. He made a handful of, I thought, just tremendous saves. And I think for the most part, Pekka Rinne has been very good this year. Certainly had a scorching month of November. Became the first Pred ever to become selected the NHL Player of the Month. Have there been the occasional hiccup here and there? Certainly, but that's to be expected probably with any goalie. But I think probably what's going to help Pekka as much as anything in the second half is the development of Jussi Saros, the backup goalie. I think in the past couple of years we've seen Pekka play, night after night after night, and 60 to 70 games. I think the last couple of years, just a huge workhorse. And I think now they have a talent in Jussi Saros that they're more willing to go to, and has provided results similar to Pekka Rinne so far. So I think if they can work that tandem the way they're starting to now, I think that's going to help Pekka Rinne a good bit in the second half.
We're talking to John Glidden, our Titans and Predators insider. Again, you can see his work on our website, newschannel5.com. He provides occasional digital content for us here at the Big Nickel, of course, formerly of the Tennessean. All right, John, let's switch gears and talk Titans now. It's been a couple of weeks since the regular season ended. We've all had a chance to kind of cool off and take inventory of what we saw this past season. A 9-7 record, a number of Pro Bowlers going to Hawaii, certainly an improved roster, an improved football team. I believe most would have to say that the arrow seems to be pointing up for this franchise.
I would say so. So much more than last year. I think we can all remember what it was like last year. One loss after another loss piled upon one another. Towards the end, there was uncertainty about the coaching situation, and certainly there were plenty of detractors of Mike Mularkey when he was named head coach. But you look at the change. Some of the things that you mentioned now. This is a winning team now. This is a team that just knocked off 5 teams that went to the playoffs. This is a team to me that really showed new offense this year, established that running identity, established a deep passing game. So I think they made huge strides from a year ago. Certainly there's still some areas to shore up, but I think for the first time since really I can recall, there's genuine optimism about can't wait to see this group get back on the field next year.
What are some of the areas of improvement? Where does this team, in your mind, need to improve going into next year?
Well, I think certainly to me, pass defense was a disappointment. This is a team that was so against the pass last year. And really, I thought struggled this year. I think finished 30th or 31st against the pass. And when you look at some of the quarterbacks who had big games, against the Titans. They weren't necessarily the heavyweight names. There were guys sometimes like Trevor Siemian or Matt Barkley were even throwing for large amounts of yards against the Titans as well. So I think that's the first and foremost area that has to get cleaned up. The cornerback situation, I think that has to be a top priority. Probably a couple others as well. I think certainly wide receiver. I think there can be depth added there. I thought Rashard Matthews had a super season, but if they can add really, someone who has the potential at least to be a true number one, you've got a pretty solid tandem on your hands there. And tight end. I think Delaney Walker certainly seems capable of having another big year, but nobody's getting younger for the Titans at tight end. I think they need to bulk up there, and probably if I had to say one more, I'd say coverage out of the backfield too. I'm talking about linebackers there. I think they struggled also when it came to covering backs and tight ends from time to time. So if they can find some of those areas in the draft. And they certainly had a pretty good haul last year, and they've got a number of picks coming up this year. Again, I think things look promising for the Titans.
Yeah, you mentioned the draft. I believe they have picks 5 and 18 in the first round. Another good opportunity for John Robinson to improve this football team. The guy you're going to hear a lot, I'm sure, is the Williams kid, the wide receiver out of Clemson. Took him a while to get going Monday night, but he made some huge catches, big plays in the win over Alabama in the national championship game. Boy, this guy's big. He's fast. He attacks the football in the air. He'd be a nice weapon for Marcus Mariota, no?
He would. He absolutely would. I think it's early, and we always, you and I and everybody else always starts doing this. We look towards the draft.
Never too early to talk draft, Johnny. Come on.
No. It's never too early. But of course, we got free agency.
Right.
You never know what might happen in free agency, but. Certainly Mike Williams. That he had a lot of those characteristics that you look for in a number one. I wonder also if they can find someone with that kind of that blazing speed. I'm not positive that Mike Williams is the big blazer yet, but certainly possesses every other quality you'd love to see in a number one. And I think what is also will benefit the Titans in the draft is I think this is going to be a very deep year for cornerbacks in the draft. And last year we saw the Titans kind of address the corners somewhat. That they signed a couple of free agents, not necessarily the bigger names, and they drafted a couple guys not necessarily in the earlier rounds. I think that becomes a much bigger priority this offseason. So I would expect one of those early picks will certainly be a cornerback as well.
Well, John, I'll get you out of here on this, and I don't profess to be an expert on interior line play, but I had a good feeling all season that Jack Conklin was having a good year. Didn't know it was first-team All-Pro that good of a year. How about that? I mean, what a feather in the cap for John Robinson. His first ever draft pick as an NFL GM in his rookie year makes first-team All-NFL.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's just so impressive. I think the Titans were very confident in part due to the fact that there were a lot of similarities, I think, between Michigan State's attack and then the Titans. It's a kind of a ground and pound attack, and I think the Titans looked at that and said, yeah, this is a guy that's really going to fit our needs. I think this is a guy that Russ Grimm is going to eat up and really be a nice plug in there. But at the same time, you're looking at a guy that, if Byron Bell was still healthy, there was still some consideration in training camp that Jack Conklin might not have even been the starting right tackle at that point. Not only does he start, he excels in the running game, which is not necessarily a surprise, but the pass protection maybe is even the bigger surprise there for the Titans. Conklin, I think, only gave up 2 sacks all year long. And
right, it was only called for 2 penalties according to Pro Football Focus. I mean, that's solid work from your right tackle.
Right, exactly. And then only 2 penalties called against him as well. So, yeah, they could not have asked for anything more from Jack Conklin. And he's a perfect fit for that, for Russ Grimm guy. He's extremely down-to-earth guy, a lunch pail type guy. So, I think the Titans certainly nailed that pick, that's for sure.
John, get your plugs in. If people want to follow you, how can they do it?
give me a follow at Glennon Sports. And as you mentioned earlier, been doing a good bit of writing here lately for the Nashville Predators website. So give us a look on that website, and hopefully I will be doing some more writing for you guys down the line as maybe the draft gets closer too.
Well, John, I'll certainly be singing your praises as the days and weeks come along. We'd love to have you do some more work. And come on, SportsLine. I know you love coming on, so we'll get you on more often, all right?
Sounds good. Appreciate you having me, John.
Thanks, John. Have a great night. The great John Glennon. Again, follow him on Twitter at Glennon Sports. You can catch him on the Predators website and occasionally, hopefully more frequently, on our website, newschannel5.com. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll take your phone calls. We'll talk some more Titans, talk some more Preds. Whatever's on your sport and mind, let us know. Also, follow me on Twitter at NC5_John Burton. Tweet me your questions or comments. We'll read them on the air. Stay with us.